The stars looked different from this part of the galaxy. Dr. Han Jiwoo stood at the observation deck of the human scientific vessel Memoria, taking in the view of the Vega sector. After decades of preparation, humans had finally achieved faster-than-light travel, opening the door to the vast galactic community. The Memoria was humanity's first diplomatic and scientific mission to make official contact with the ruling power in this sector, the Tyel hegemony. Beautiful, isn't it? Commander Kang Do-hyun joined Han at the window. The military officer's uniform was crisp and formal, ready for their first meeting with the Tyel representatives. Han nodded. Somewhere out there are the answers to questions we've been asking since we first looked up at the night sky. Let's hope the Tyel are in a sharing mood, Kang said, his expression serious. Intelligence reports suggest they're not exactly the friendly type. The ship's intercom crackled. Dr. Han and Commander Kang, please report to the bridge. We're approaching the Tyel outpost. As they walked through the corridors of the Memoria, Han reviewed what little they knew about the Tyel. They were a highly advanced species who had dominated this region of space for thousands of years. They were said to be tall, with six-limbed bodies and skin that shifted colors with their moods. Beyond that, humans knew very little about their culture or beliefs. Han was a xenoanthropologist, specializing in cultural death practices across different species. It was a field that had been purely theoretical until now. Today would be his first chance to study a truly alien approach to life's greatest mystery. The bridge was busy with activity as they entered. Diplomat Kim Jia stood at the command center, her formal diplomatic robes representing Earth's united government. Dr. Han, Commander, she greeted them. The Tyel have granted us permission to dock. They've requested that our delegation be limited to 5 people. Have they shared any cultural protocols we should follow? Han asked. Kim shook her head. Very little. They seem impatient with the process. The Tyel outpost grew larger in the view screen. It was a massive structure, shaped like a spiral and glowing with blue-green light. Unlike human stations with their practical, blocky designs, the Tyel architecture flowed like water frozen in time. It's incredible, Han whispered. And built on the backs of 100 conquered worlds, Commander Kang added quietly. Remember that, Doctor. The docking procedure went smoothly, and soon the 5-person human delegation stood before the airlock. Besides Han, Kang, and Kim, they were joined by 2 security officers. The airlock hissed open, revealing their first look at the Tyel. The aliens were just as described, tall and 6-limbed with skin that rippled between shades of blue and green. Their faces featured 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and when they spoke, their words were translated through devices attached to their throat-like structures. Welcome to Outpost Vega 7, the lead Tyel said, its skin shifting to a deep purple. I am Overseer Xian. You will follow me to the meeting chamber. No handshakes, no formal greetings, Han noted. The Tyel turned without waiting for a response and began walking down a curved hallway. The human delegation followed, trying not to stare at the alien surroundings. The meeting chamber was a large circular room with a table that seemed to be made of flowing liquid metal. The Tyel took their places on one side, the humans on the other. The hegemony acknowledges Earth as a newly spacefaring world, Xian began without preamble. You are granted provisional status pending evaluation of your species' worth. Diplomat Kim maintained her composure. We thank the hegemony for this opportunity and look forward to peaceful exchange between our peoples. What followed was a series of direct questions about human technology, military capability, and resource production. Han noticed that the Tyel showed little interest in Earth's culture, art, or history. When Kim tried to share information about human achievements in these areas, Xian's skin rippled with what the translation device identified as dismissive amusement. These matters are of little consequence, Xian said. A species is measured by its power and efficiency, not its stories. Han couldn't stay silent any longer. With respect, Overseer, understanding a species' culture is essential to understanding their capabilities. Our history has shaped our approach to technology and innovation. Xian's 4 eyes focused on Han. And you are? Dr. Han Ji-woo, xenoanthropologist, specializing in cultural death practices. The tail's skin rippled in what must have been laughter. Death practices? You study how species dispose of their non-functioning members? Han felt a flash of offense at the cold terminology. I study how civilizations honor their dead and preserve their memory and wisdom. The tail exchanged looks among themselves, their skin shifting through patterns of color. This concept is primitive, Xian said finally. The dead are no longer useful. Why would an advanced species waste resources on non-functioning biological matter? Because they're not just matter, Han replied, feeling Commander Kang's warning glance. They're our ancestors, the foundation upon which our civilization is built. This triggered more color rippling among the Tael. Xian leaned forward. You speak as if the dead still exist in some form. In memory, they do. Through their teachings, their discoveries, their wisdom passed down through generations. We speak to them through our ceremonies, our records, our stories. You speak to the dead? Jian asked, the translator unable to fully capture the mocking tone, but the shifting colors of deep red and orange conveyed it clearly. Such primitive superstition has no place in a spacefaring species. The other tail joined in what could only be described as laughter. Han felt his face grow hot, but diplomat Kim smoothly steered the conversation back to trade opportunities. Later, the human delegation was given a tour of the outpost. The tail technology was indeed impressive. Gravity manipulation, matter conversion, energy systems beyond human understanding. But Han noticed something troubling. There were no monuments, no historical displays, no signs of cultural memory. During the tour, they passed what appeared to be a disposal facility. Han watched in horror as tile workers unceremoniously processed several bodies, breaking them down into component elements. Your people have died? Han asked carefully. 3 workers experienced system failure during a maintenance operation, the tail guide explained casually. Their components are being recycled. No ceremony? No honoring of their contribution? Han pressed. The guide's colors shifted to a confused yellow. Why would we? They no longer function. New workers have already been assigned. That evening, as the human delegation discussed their observations in their quarters, Han couldn't shake his disturbance. They have no connection to their past, to their ancestors, he told the others. It's as if they exist only in the present moment. Makes them efficient, Commander Kang noted. But hollow. And dangerous, Diplomat Kim added quietly. A species that doesn't learn from history is doomed to repeat it. Han looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth and the rich tapestry of human history, of the countless generations whose shoulders they stood upon. He thought of the small altar in his quarters back home, where he honored his grandparents with incense and remembered stories. They mock us for speaking to our dead, he said softly. But I wonder if that's exactly what makes us human. 3 days after the first meeting with the Tael, Dr. Han Ji-woo found himself on a small research shuttle heading toward the 4th moon of a gas giant in the Vega system. The Tael had reluctantly granted permission for a human scientific team to explore the moon, which their scans had shown might contain interesting mineral formations. Dr. Park Minna, an expert in quantum consciousness, sat beside Han, reviewing data on her tablet. They had worked together for years at the Earth Science Institute, but this was their first field mission in alien space. The Tael seemed very uninterested in this moon, Park said, looking up from her readings. They said they surveyed it centuries ago and found nothing of value. Han nodded. That might work in our favor. They're less likely to monitor us closely. Commander Kang had insisted on accompanying them, along with a small security team. The tension between humans and the Tael had grown since their first meeting. General Lee Tae-won, the highest-ranking military officer on the Memoria, had ordered all research teams to maintain constant communication and travel with security. We're approaching the landing site, the pilot announced. Scans show a flat area near what appears to be an ancient impact crater. The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere of the moon. Through the viewport, Han could see a barren landscape of gray rock and dust. The crater came into view, a perfect circle about 2 kilometers wide. "That doesn't look natural," Park whispered, pointing at the crater. "The edges are too perfect." After landing, the team suited up in their exploration gear. The moon had a breathable atmosphere, but it was thin, and the temperature was very cold. Their suits would protect them and allow for extended exploration. "Stay within visual range," Commander Kang instructed as they exited the shuttle. "And remember, at the first sign of anything unusual, we return to the ship." They walked toward the crater, their footprints leaving clear marks in the dusty surface. Han felt a strange sensation as they approached the rim, a faint buzzing at the back of his mind. "Do you feel that?" he asked Park. She nodded slowly. "Like a humming, but not in my ears. In my thoughts." They reached the edge of the crater and looked down. What they saw made them freeze in place. The crater was not empty as it had appeared from above. In the center stood a structure, a perfect dome of black material that seemed to absorb the light around it. "That's not natural, Commander," Kang stated, raising his scanner. "And it's not registering on our equipment." "We need to go down there," Han said, already moving toward a path that led into the crater. The descent was easy in the low gravity. As they approached the dome, the buzzing in their minds grew stronger. The surface of the structure was smooth and featureless with no visible entrance. Park ran her hand over the surface. "It's warm, and it feels alive somehow." Han placed his hand next to hers. The moment his skin made contact, lines of blue light appeared on the dome's surface, spreading outward from his touch like ripples in water. "It's responding to you," Park said, her voice filled with wonder. Commander Kang pulled Han back. "We should report this before going any further." But Han was transfixed by the lights. They're forming patterns, like writing. The blue lines had indeed begun to arrange themselves into symbols. They were unlike any language Han had ever seen, yet somehow familiar. "The shuttle can't get a clear signal to the Memoria," one of the security team reported. "Some kind of interference." "Then we go back to the shuttle and leave," Kang ordered. Before they could move, a section of the dome slid open, revealing a dark passage leading inside. The humming in their minds became a gentle pull, an invitation. "We can't leave now," Han said. "This could be the greatest discovery in human history." After a brief argument, Commander Kang agreed to a quick exploration, but insisted they stay together. They activated the lights on their suits and entered the structure. Inside, the walls glowed with the same blue light that had appeared on the outside. The passage led them into a large circular chamber. In the center stood a platform with what looked like a control panel. "This technology is far beyond anything the tale showed us," Park said, examining the walls. "And it's ancient. The dust patterns suggest it's been untouched for thousands, maybe millions of years." Han approached the central platform. As he did, the blue lights grew brighter, and new symbols appeared on the walls all around them. "It's definitely responding to our presence," Park said. "Specifically to you, Han." Commander Kang's communicator suddenly activated. "This is Tail Overlord Xian. Your presence has been detected at a restricted site. Explain yourselves immediately." Kang explained their discovery of the structure, but the Tail's response was immediate and harsh. "That area is forbidden. You will leave at once. A Tail security force has been dispatched to your location." After Kang ended the communication, he turned to the scientists. "We have maybe 30 minutes before they arrive. Make them count, Hyundai." And Park worked quickly, documenting everything they could. Park connected her equipment to try to understand the technology. "These readings are incredible," she said. "The energy signature suggests some kind of quantum interface, possibly designed to interact with consciousness itself." "But why is it responding to us and not the tail?" Han wondered. "They've been in this system for centuries." As Han circled the central platform, he noticed a small alcove in the wall that they hadn't seen before. Inside was what looked like a handprint, but with 6 finger spaces instead of 5. "This doesn't match human or tail physiology," he noted. Park joined him. Maybe it's meant for whoever built this place. Try putting your hand on it anyway. Han hesitated, then placed his hand over the imprint as best he could. Nothing happened. It was worth a try, Park said. Han was about to remove his hand when he remembered something. Before every major research expedition on Earth, he always performed a small ritual to honor his ancestors and ask for their guidance. It was a personal tradition, one that connected him to his family history. Without really knowing why, he spoke aloud. "Grandmother Jin, Grandfather Wu, I seek your wisdom as I have always done." The moment he spoke their names, the handprint beneath his palm glowed bright blue. The floor beneath them hummed and a section of the wall slid away, revealing a hidden chamber. They stepped inside cautiously. The chamber was small and empty, except for a pedestal in the center. As Han approached, a beam of light shot up from the pedestal, forming a three-dimensional image in the air. The hologram showed beings that looked remarkably similar to humans, though taller and with slightly larger eyes. They wore simple robes and stood in what appeared to be the very chamber Han and Park were now in, but when it was new and filled with equipment, one of the beings stepped forward and spoke. Though the words were in an unknown language, Han somehow understood the meaning. "We have waited for those who remember." The hologram flickered and disappeared as an explosion rocked the structure. Commander Kang rushed into the chamber. "The Tel are here," he said urgently. "We need to leave now." They ran back through the main chamber toward the exit. Through the open doorway, they could see Tel soldiers descending into the crater, their weapons drawn. "Take all the data you can," Han told Park as they ran. "They can't erase what we've discovered." As they reached the entrance, Tile Overlord Jian himself stepped into view, his skin pulsing angry red. "This site is now under direct control of the Tel hegemony," he announced. "Your discovery is hereby classified. You will surrender all recorded data immediately." "This site responded to humans, not Tel," Han argued. "It has some connection to us." Xian's skin rippled with mocking colors. A primitive species claiming connection to advanced technology? Mere coincidence. The ancients would never choose such an undeveloped species as worthy successors. As Tel soldiers surrounded them, Han knew they wouldn't be allowed to keep their findings. But he had seen enough to know that something profound connected humans to whoever had built this place. Something the Tel, for all their advanced technology, did not possess. The question was, what would happen now that the connection had been made? 3 weeks had passed since the Tel seized the ancient site. The human expedition had been ordered to remain at the Tel outpost, while an official investigation took place. Dr. Han Jiwoo paced in his small assigned quarters, frustrated by the forced inaction. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Park Minha entered, looking over her shoulder to ensure no one had seen her. "I managed to save this," she whispered, pulling a small data device from her pocket. "I copied some of the readings from the ancient structure before the Tel confiscated our equipment." Han's eyes widened. "That's dangerous, Minha. If they find out..." "They won't," she said firmly. "But we need to understand what we found. That place responded to you, Jiwoo. To humans. We need to know why." Han nodded and took the device. "We need to get this back to Earth, to New Seoul. There are researchers there who might help us make sense of these readings." 2 days later, after tense negotiations between diplomat Kim and the Tel authorities, the human expedition was permitted to return to their ship with a warning not to enter restricted areas again. The Memoria set course for the human colony, world of New Seoul, the closest human settlement to the Vega sector. New Seoul was a thriving colony, one of humanity's first successful settlements beyond the solar system. Its architecture blended traditional Korean designs with modern space colony structures, creating a unique cultural landscape that honored Earth's heritage while embracing the future. Han and Park immediately sought out Dr. Choi Yoonji, a leading archaeologist specializing in extinct civilizations. They met in her laboratory at the New Seoul Science Institute, a sprawling complex dedicated to human research. "These readings are unlike anything I've ever seen," Choi said after examining Their data. The energy patterns share similarities with ancient artifacts found on Earth, particularly those associated with ancestral worship across multiple cultures. But why would alien technology respond to human ancestral practices? Han asked. Perhaps we should consult Bei Jiho, Choi suggested. His work in psionic phenomena might provide some insight. Bei Jiho was a controversial figure in scientific circles. His research into psionic abilities, mental powers that seemed to defy conventional understanding, was viewed with skepticism by many. But his results were difficult to dismiss entirely. They found Bei in his small office at the edge of the institute grounds. He was a quiet man with intense eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. "Dr. Han, I've been expecting you," Bei said as they entered, though no one had informed him of their visit. Han felt a chill run down his spine but kept his composure. "We need your help understanding some data we collected." Bei examined the readings from the ancient site, his fingers moving over the displays with practiced precision. Occasionally he closed his eyes as if listening to something no one else could hear. "These patterns," he said finally, "they're communication signatures." "Communication?" Park asked. "With whom?" "With the dead," Bei replied simply. "Or rather, with preserved consciousness. The technology you found wasn't a building or a weapon. It was a conduit for consciousness to persist beyond physical death." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "You're saying this alien technology somehow preserves the minds of the deceased?" Han asked skeptically. "Not somehow," Bei corrected. "Through quantum entanglement at the neural level. My research suggests that human consciousness has unique properties that might allow for such preservation, though we lack the technology to achieve it. These beings clearly mastered it." Choi pulled up images of ancient human burial sites on her tablet. "Look at these practices from across human history. Egyptian mummification, Norse burial ships, Korean ancestral tablets, indigenous Australian songlines. All these cultures developed ways to preserve their dead, to keep their wisdom accessible to the living. As if our species somehow knew," Han whispered, "that consciousness could continue." "We need to examine human DNA," Park suggested. "If there's a connection between us and these ancient beings, perhaps it's written in our genetic code." The research team worked tirelessly for days. They analyzed the data from the ancient site alongside human genetic samples and historical records of death practices from across Earth's cultures. "I found something," Park announced on the 5th day. She displayed a complex genetic sequence on the main screen. "This sequence appears in human DNA but doesn't match any known functional gene. It's been dismissed as junk DNA by most geneticists." "And?" Han prompted. "And it matches patterns found in the ancient technology with 97% accuracy," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "It's as if we were designed to interact with their technology. Or they designed their technology to respond to us," Choi suggested. As they debated the implications, an urgent message arrived from General Lee Taewon. The general's face appeared on their communication screen, his expression grave. "Dr. Han, we've received disturbing reports from Tael Space. Their technology is experiencing widespread malfunctions across multiple star systems, and there's more. Ancient sites similar to the one you discovered are activating throughout their territory." "What kind of malfunctions?" Han asked. "Their ships are going off course. Communication systems are picking up strange signals. And there are reports of—" Lee hesitated. "Voices being heard through their technology. Voices speaking in languages no one recognizes." Bei Jiho, who had been quietly observing, suddenly stood up. "It's starting," he said, his voice oddly distant. "The awakening." "What awakening?" Han asked, but Bei only shook his head. "The Tael have called for an emergency summit," General Lee continued. "They're accusing us of sabotage and threatening military action if we don't help them solve the problem." Within hours, the research team was aboard a military transport headed back to Tael Space. The situation had escalated rapidly, with reports of Tael citizens experiencing mass panic as their reliable technology began to fail them. When they arrived at the Tael Central Command Station, They were immediately escorted to a large conference chamber. Tail Emperor Zhao himself was present, his skin shifting between angry red and anxious yellow patterns. "Your species has done something to our systems," he accused as soon as the humans entered. "The disturbances began immediately after your contact with the forbidden site." "We've done nothing," Diplomat Kim replied calmly. "But we may be able to help you understand what's happening." Han stepped forward and explained their research findings. The connection between human DNA and the ancient technology. The theory that the sites were designed to preserve consciousness. "Absurd," Emperor Zhao dismissed. "These are merely old ruins with failing systems. Your primitive beliefs are clouding your scientific judgment." The argument grew heated. The Tail refused to accept any connection between their technological problems and the ancient sites, instead blaming human sabotage. In the midst of the shouting, Bai Jiho suddenly went rigid. His eyes rolled back and he collapsed to the floor, his body shaking. "Get a medical team," Han shouted, rushing to Bai's side. But as he reached him, Bai's eyes snapped open, now glowing with the same blue light they had seen in the ancient structure. When he spoke, his voice was not his own. It was deeper, resonating with an otherworldly quality that filled the chamber and silenced everyone present. In a language no one had heard before, yet everyone somehow understood, Bai said, "The children, remember, the time of reunion has come." Han watched in awe as the Tile Emperor's skin turned pale with fear. Whatever was speaking through Bai, the Tile recognized it. And they were terrified. The conference chamber fell silent as Bai Jiho rose to his feet, his eyes still glowing with blue light. The Tile guards had drawn their weapons, but Emperor Zhao motioned for them to hold. "What is happening to him?" the Emperor demanded, his skin shifting between fear yellow and anger red. Han moved toward Bai cautiously. "Jiho, can you hear me?" "The vessel you call Bai Jiho cannot respond," the voice coming from Bai's mouth said. "I am speaking through him. I am one of those you would call the precursors." Han felt his heart racing. "Who are the precursors?" "We were the first," the voice said. "We seeded this galaxy with life billions of your years ago. We guided evolution on 1,000 worlds, including the one you call Earth." The Tael Emperor's skin paled to a sickly white. "Impossible. The Tael have ruled this sector for 10,000 years. We have no record of such beings." "You have destroyed all records," the voice replied, turning Bai's glowing eyes toward the Emperor. "Just as you have destroyed all who came before you." Diplomat Moon Hyuk, who had arrived with the human team, stepped forward. His calm voice was perfect for this tense moment. "Please, can you explain why you have contacted us now? And why through humans?" Bai's body moved with a grace that wasn't his own, gesturing with precise movements as the precursor spoke. "Humans are our direct descendants, carrying our genetic legacy. When we faced extinction from a threat beyond the galaxy, we left our technology in dormancy, programmed to recognize our children when they evolved the ability to maintain connection with their ancestors." "The death rituals," Han whispered. "Our cultural practices for honoring the dead." "Yes," the precursor confirmed. "These practices are not merely cultural. They arose from genetic memory and instinct we embedded within you. The ability to maintain quantum entanglement with consciousness beyond physical death is rare in the universe. It is our greatest achievement and gift." The Tail Emperor's skin now showed patches of disbelief and fear. "This is human trickery, some technological deception to claim territory in our space." "Your denial changes nothing, Emperor of the Tail," the precursor said. "For millennia, your species has expanded by eliminating all others, erasing their cultures and memories. You dispose of your own dead without honor, severing all connections to your past. You are hollow beings, concerned only with power and territory." The Emperor stood up, his skin now fully red with rage. "I will not be lectured by a human puppet performing tricks. This meeting is over. All ancient sites will be destroyed immediately to end whatever interference they are causing in our systems." He turned to his commanders. "Send the order. Every Do site is to be demolished. Use whatever force is necessary." Han stepped forward. "Emperor Zhao, please reconsider. These sites contain knowledge beyond our understanding. Destroying them would be. The decision is made. The Emperor cut him off. The tale do not preserve the obsolete. We move forward, always forward. As the Emperor and his entourage swept from the room, Han turned to Bei, who was still possessed by the precursor consciousness. Can't you stop them, if your technology is so advanced? Direct intervention is not possible, the precursor replied. But the awakening has already begun. The consciousnesses preserved in our technology have started to reconnect. Even now they reach out across the quantum network that spans this galaxy. Park approached cautiously. What exactly is happening to the TEL systems? Our technology interfaces with all forms of consciousness, living and preserved. The TEL built their empire atop our network without understanding it. As the preserved consciousnesses awaken, they naturally seek connection with the living. Before they could ask more questions, alarms began blaring throughout the station. A TEL officer rushed into the room, his skin pale blue with shock. It's happening everywhere, he reported to the human delegation, apparently forgetting they were supposed to be prisoners. Our systems are being overridden, and there are apparitions appearing on all our worlds. The main view screen in the EU chamber activated by itself, showing scenes from across the TEL Empire. In homes, on ships, and government buildings, translucent figures were appearing, visible through some unknown technology. The figures were of different species, most entirely unknown to the humans, the extinct, Han realized. The species the TEL wiped out during their expansion. The precursor nodded Bei's head. The preserved consciousnesses of countless civilizations. Our technology was designed to save not just individual minds, but the collective wisdom and memory of entire species. On the screen, they watched as TEL citizens fell to their knees before apparitions of beings they had thought long extinct. The ghostly figures spoke, their voices somehow transmitted through TEL technology, recounting the crimes committed against them. We were the Notori, one apparition said to a group of terrified TEL officials. You came to our world claiming friendship, then released toxins that killed 9 billion of us. You claimed our planet was uninhabited when you colonized it. Another scene showed a different species confronting TEL military officers. We were the Vesh. You destroyed our sun and claimed it was a natural event. 3 billion of us died so you could harvest our system's resources. Scene after scene played out, showing dozens of extinct species confronting their TEL destroyers with evidence of crimes committed over thousands of years. This is why the TEL dispose of their dead so thoroughly, Han said, understanding dawning. They don't want their own ancestors bearing witness to their crimes. The precursor turned Bei's glowing eyes to Han. You understand now. The TEL Empire was built on genocide and erasure of history. They fear the dead because the dead remember. The human team watched in stunned silence as the scenes of confrontation continued across the Empire. The TEL, a species that had mocked humans for their reverence of ancestors, were now faced with the ancestors of all those they had destroyed. The precursor spoke again. Our technology was created for preservation, for memory, for wisdom to span beyond death. The TEL perverted its purpose, building their civilization on the ruins of others without understanding the foundations. What will happen now? Park asked. The truth emerges, the precursor said simply. No empire built on lies can stand when confronted by the truth. The preserved consciousnesses will reveal what truly happened across this galaxy over millennia of TEL rule. Diplomat Moon looked concerned. Will there be violence? Revenge? The preserved cannot directly harm the living, the precursor answered. But the living must now face what they have done. How they respond will determine the future of this galaxy. The precursor turned to Han specifically. You, Han Ji-woo, awakened this process when you spoke the names of your ancestors within our sanctuary. Humans understand what the TEL cannot, that the dead are not gone, merely transformed. Their wisdom, their memory, their consciousness continues. Han thought about his small altar back home, the incense he burned for his grandparents, the stories he told of them to keep their memory alive. Such a simple thing, Yet it had connected him to technology more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. "What happens next?" Han asked. The precursor's presence began to fade, the blue glow in Bay's eyes dimming. The reunion of past and present, the reconnection of all conscious beings across time, the reckoning that must come before healing can begin. As the blue light faded completely, Bay collapsed into Han's arms, unconscious, but breathing steadily. At the same moment, the view screen showed Emperor Zhao facing a chamber filled with ghostly figures, the preserved consciousnesses of all the species the Tile had believed were forever silenced. The Emperor's skin had turned a pale, sickly gray as he confronted the impossible, the return of all those his empire had tried to erase from history. 3 months after the awakening of the ancient consciousness network, the galaxy was transformed. The once mighty Tail Empire had fractured, its citizens divided between those who embraced the truth and those who could not face it. Han Jiwoo stood at the observation deck of the New Seoul Science Institute, looking up at the night sky. The stars seemed different now, knowing what he did about the civilizations that had lived and died among them. "The latest reports are in," Dr. Park Minha said, joining him at the window. 37% of Tal territories have declared independence. Most are forming new governments with guidance from the preserved consciousnesses of the species that originally inhabited those worlds. "And the Emperor?" Han asked. "Still in seclusion," Park replied. "Half his military abandoned him when they learned the truth about their empire's history. The other half remains loyal, but they control less than a quarter of their former territory." The door opened and diplomat Yang Minji entered. Once a junior member of the diplomatic corps, she had risen quickly in the new interstellar political landscape. Her skill in negotiating between living species and preserved consciousnesses had made her invaluable. "We just received word from the Tail Reformist Group," she announced. "Oh Sungmin has been chosen as their representative to the new Galactic Council. Oh Sungmin was one of the first Tail to break with imperial doctrine after the revelation. Unlike many Tail who went mad from the truth, he had embraced it, working tirelessly to help his people face their history and find a path to redemption." "That's good news," Han said. "Sungmin understands both sides of this transition." The three of them made their way to the main research hall, where the first human-built consciousness interface had been constructed. Based on the ancient precursor technology but adapted for modern use, it allowed direct communication with the preserved consciousness network, now known as the Collective. Bei Jiho sat cross-legged before the interface, his eyes closed in meditation. Since being temporarily possessed by the precursor consciousness, he had developed an uncanny ability to connect with the Collective without technical assistance. "They're ready," Bei said without opening his eyes as the others approached. The interface activated, projecting a holographic image of several beings. Some were recognizably precursors, while others belonged to species none of the humans had seen before. They were the representatives of the Collective, the preserved consciousnesses of countless extinct civilizations. "The transition progresses well," one of the precursors said. 17 formerly Tile worlds have now established direct communion with their original inhabitants. "There is still resistance," added another consciousness, this one from a species called the Moro that had been among the first victims of Tal expansion. "Many Tile refuse to acknowledge their history or accept guidance from those they once destroyed." "That's to be expected," Diplomat Yang said. "Change takes time, especially when it challenges everything they believed about themselves." Han stepped forward. "What have you learned about the technology? Why did the precursors create it?" The precursor representative's expression turned solemn. "We faced extinction from a threat beyond the galaxy, a wave of energy that destroyed all organic matter in its path. We could not save our physical forms, but we developed the means to preserve our consciousness. We encoded this ability into the genetic structure of many species we had seeded," another precursor added. "But only humans maintained the cultural practices that kept the connection alive, the honoring of ancestors, the preservation of memory across generations. While other species abandoned their dead, humans spoke to them," the first precursor said. You carried their wisdom forward, keeping the quantum connection intact across time. Park had been analyzing data on her tablet. The ancient sites are still activating across the galaxy. Over 3,000 have been discovered so far. Each site contains the preserved consciousness of civilizations that once thrived in its region, the Moro representative explained. Some were destroyed by natural disasters, others by conflict. The Tael eliminated many more. But why reveal yourselves now? Han asked. Why not earlier in human history, or later when we were more advanced? The network requires a critical mass of conscious connections to function, the precursor answered. When you spoke your ancestors' names within our sanctuary, you completed a connection that had been forming for generations. The timing was neither planned nor random. It was the natural culmination of many factors. In the months since the revelation, Han had worked with scientists across human space to understand the precursor technology. They had discovered that the human tradition of ancestor worship, practiced in different forms across cultures, had preserved neural patterns that gradually strengthened the quantum network over generations. The door to the research hall opened, and Oh Sung-min entered. The tile reformist's skin shifted in gentle patterns of blue and green, showing his calm but serious mood. Forgive my interruption, he said with a respectful bow. I have just come from meeting with other Tal reformists. We wish to formally request guidance from the collective on establishing our own ancestral practices. The representatives of the collective exchanged looks of surprise. You wish to honor your dead? The Moro asked, clearly skeptical after millennia of Tal disrespect for the deceased. We wish to remember, Sung-min replied simply. For too long the Tal have moved only forward, discarding our past and the wisdom it contains. We see now what this has cost us, our connection to each other, to our place in the universe, to the truth of who we are. Han watched this exchange with wonder. 3 months ago, the Tal had mocked humans for speaking to their dead. Now they sought to learn this practice themselves. Over the following weeks, the first ancestral communication hub was established in New Seoul. Using adapted precursor technology, it allowed living beings to access the wisdom and experience of preserved consciousnesses. Representatives from dozens of species came to learn and to share their own histories. The technology of the precursors was gradually unlocked, revealing capabilities far beyond current understanding. It wasn't focused on weapons or power, but on preservation, connection, and the continuity of wisdom across time. Han stood with Park and Yang on the opening day of the hub, watching as humans and aliens alike communed with the preserved consciousnesses of their ancestors and of extinct civilizations. We thought they were laughing at us for being primitive, Han said, remembering the first meeting with the Tile, but our so-called primitive practices were the most advanced technology of all. Not technology, came a voice beside them. Bei Jiho had joined them, his expression serene. Connection, the understanding that death is not an end, but a transformation. That those who came before us remain part of who we are. In the center of the hub, a group of Tal reformists, led by Sung-min, were learning the human practice of ancestral tablets, writing the names of their forebears on simple wooden plaques. Their skin shifted in patterns of deep blue, the Tal color of profound respect. Will they succeed? Park wondered aloud. Can a species that spent thousands of years destroying history learn to preserve it? They're trying, Yang said. That's the beginning of all change. At the far end of the hub, a holographic projection showed the formal signing of the new Galactic Covenant of Memory. Representatives from all species, living and preserved, gathered to establish a new cooperative council to replace the Tael hegemony. The Tael Emperor, now stripped of most of his power, formally apologized for his empire's crimes and surrendered authority to the council. His skin showed a pattern none of the humans had seen before, a deep purple that seemed to indicate both regret and hope. As the ceremony concluded, all the delegates spoke the names of their ancestors in unison, their voices creating a harmonious wave that resonated with the precursor technology throughout the hub. For a brief, breathtaking moment, The boundary between past and present seemed to dissolve, and Han felt the presence of countless generations standing with them. "We never truly die," whispered a voice that sounded like his grandmother's. "So long as someone remembers to speak our names." Han closed his eyes and smiled. Humanity had reached the stars believing they were alone, only to discover they had never been truly alone at all. Their ancestors had always been with them, and now, so were the ancestors of the galaxy itself. In the end, it wasn't advanced weapons or technology that had changed the galaxy. It was the simple human practice of honoring those who came before, of carrying their memory forward, of speaking to the dead and listening when they spoke back.